Welcome to Once Upon a Town. I'm your host, Eamon McCarthy-Earls. Today we'll be speaking with Bob Catalano, a Franklin native, World War II veteran, former town council member, and longtime employee of General Motors at their Framingham assembly. He'll be sharing some of his life stories and his experiences during World War II and contextualizing them for us today in modern-day Franklin. Bob, thank you so much for coming on the program today. It's great to have you with us.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, Bob, you're a lifelong resident of Franklin. You grew up right here at the Four Corners.
Only 90 years in the same location.
And not bored of it yet.
Yeah. Not the same house, because I lost my original house in 2012. And this current dwelling was constructed in 2013, and I've been here since 2013. But together, I've been over here for 96 years.
Wow, that's a pretty incredible legacy in one spot. When your house burnt down in 2012.
2012, yes.
And
September the 8th.
September the 8th, a day that for you will live in infamy, I guess. Your house, what caused the fire 7 years ago?
The best guess was that it was struck by lightning. And I can remember it just like it was yesterday. I had four visitors who were interested in visiting an empty apartment that I had on the second floor. There were 4 people, and we made an arrangement to go up to the second floor, even though I told them that it was not for rent, but they wanted to see it anyway, so I took them up.
They weren't convinced it wasn't for rent, I guess.
Well, there was a young couple, and I think they were contemplating marriage, and that was at least the impression that I had. But I was very adamant about, it's not for rent. But they wanted to see it anyway, so I knew the young lady's mother and the aunt, who was part of the 4 people who made up the party. So I showed them the second floor, and I said, there's also a 3rd floor. I said, would you like to visit that? They said, yes. As we mounted the top step of the 3rd floor, I mentioned there was a closed door on the right. I said, that's just attic space. There's nothing in there to see. And they were very acceptable to the facts. And I was, to be honest about it, I was in a little bit of a hurry. It was a Saturday, and I'm pretty busy on a Saturday, so they went through the other 2 rooms and exited. And I followed them out to pick up my mail. They left and I returned with my mail. I was sitting in my kitchen. I was going through my mail, and as I was doing so, I saw a police cruiser pull in my driveway. And I thought, oh, somebody got a ticket, speeding or going through a light or something. And then I saw the officer run up my driveway. And I said, oh, something must have happened. So I went to the back door, and he's there. I looked at him, and I said, what's wrong? He said, your house is on fire. I said, it is? Where? He says, the fire is coming out of the roof. I said, well, that must be the 3rd floor. I just left there with 4 other people. I says, I want to see. No, you can't go up there. I said, I'm going up. So I ran up to the third floor, and he's running right behind me. We looked around the room. I said, "Do you see anything?" And he remained silent. Oh, I looked down at the floor, and I said, "Whoa, wait a minute." There was a ball of smoke that was coming out of the baseboard of the. I said, "Oh, there is a fire, and it's in the attic, the room that I suggested we not visit or open the door." He said, "Now get out of here." I said, "Yeah, I want to see what you saw." So we run down the steps. I come outside, and I saw what he saw was a mass of flames coming out of the roof. Then you asked me what caused the fire. And I says, "I don't know." But then I thought, I says, earlier in the week, I was talking to a cousin of mine who was a year younger than I. And she says, "Oh, that storm was awful." She says, "My house shook." She says, "I'm scared stiff." She said, "That thunder was violent." And I said, "Yeah." I says, "Come to think of it, the lightning was pretty bright too." Then I put the two and two together. I says, "The lightning must have struck it."
Maybe left something sort of smoldering up in your attic that then kind of flamed up later on in the week?
Yeah. The attic space was very heavily insulated, and that, I think, contained the fire for a couple of days. And I'm just lucky to be alive today, because if it happened during the nighttime when I take out my hearing aids, I don't think I'd be here talking to you today.
So growing up here at the Four Corners in Franklin, this spot here obviously was a big crossroads between King Street and Route 140 going back many years, probably the busiest it's ever been these days. Was it a pretty busy intersection when you were growing up here as a child?
It was one time. Do you know where Shaw's Market is?
Which was originally, when you were growing up in the 1930s, basically a race course almost, or a big field.
That is correct. Well, there was a horse race track in the backside, which adjoins a part of the housing development that's down there. Franklin used to have a big bonfire, Franklin Police Department. I'm sorry, a fire department put it on, Franklin Fire Department. And they used railroad ties, and they interwove them to a height that, I can't guess, maybe.
I think I've heard some years it was as much as 75 or 100 feet tall.
Yeah, it could be that high. And the traffic that used to come out. This is in a period where there weren't too many automobiles, nothing compared to today. But the night of that bonfire, this intersection was
jammed with people.
Jammed with people and automobiles. People came from all the surrounding towns. It was a big event. Yeah. So I saw traffic at this intersection for many years.
And when you were growing up, there was the 1936. There was the school, the Four Corners School, that was put in right across the street from where you grew up. Did you go to school at the Four Corners School, or
Yes,
was it
sir.
after you were already out of elementary school?
I went to school right there, right across the street. It was the original wooden structure.
Oh wow, there was an earlier school there.
It was a wooden structure. The principal was Maud Granger. Her brother was a selectman in the town of Franklin, Al Granger. There were 4 grades there. And of course, all I had to do was go across the street. It was very convenient for me. But that school was demolished during the Depression time, and it was rebuilt with WWII money.
That's interesting.
The brick school was still only 4 grades. And then recently, of course, the town sold it to CVS. They don't have neighborhood schools anymore.
And so you would have been there through elementary school, and then was that also a junior high school as well, or was that a different school building that had the junior high?
No, the junior high was down in Winter Street. It's currently used as a place for the elderly.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm. The one is Franklin Housing Authority places there.
There was another school that I went to from the 5th grade. I went to the 5th grade up. Well, what used to be the Franklin Town Hall. Mm-hmm. That was at Emmett Street and Main Street, or East Central Street, West Central Street, I'm sorry. Then the 6th grade was behind the Davis and Thayer School.
Which was the high school at that point in time, right?
Was definitely, that's where I went to high school, yes.
You must have done a lot of walking between all those different schools along the way.
Yeah, we walked to all the schools. There were very few bus students.
And so you went to Franklin High School when it was situated in the current Davis Thayer School building at the intersection of Union Street and West Central Street.
That was a high school.
And you must have graduated class of 1940 or 41?
1940.
1940. And that was the year of the... I always forget, was 1940 or 41 the year of the big Valentine's Day blizzard that buried the town in snow, almost like an older version of the famous blizzard of 1978 that covered the town in 5 feet of snow.
78 was a hurricane.
Yeah.
I was with the football team. I was the manager of the football team. I was riding home with a coach of the football team.
In 1978 or 1938?
1938.
1938.
With the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
He had a terraplane, a convertible.
Mm-hmm.
I could hear him mumble, "Boy, this car is all over the road." I said, "Boy, that's windows." He says, "There's something else." I didn't say much to him, because I knew he meant what he was focused on his driving.
Fighting to keep the car on the road, I'm guessing.
That terraplane came from Supple Motors.
Oh yes.
Yes.
And that was located on Ruggles Street, right off of East Central Street.
Yeah, that's right, off East Central and Ruggles. Yeah, they had a sales room up there. There's a current gas station up there now. But the original Supple homestead was demolished, along with the attached showroom, which was a big garage that they had attached to the house.
And you knew Leo Supple, the proprietor of the dealership there, pretty well, right?
I know Leo Supple. I know his mother. His mother was a wonderful woman, and Leo was a great guy. And I know his 2 other brothers, his brother Lenny, and his brother Father Joe Supple, who was an oblate priest.
And I guess Father Joe Supple was pretty well liked in the community. He was very involved in things, and
well, he spent most of his time away from Franklin. He was a missionary, and but he came back to Franklin, and I served mass for him. Yeah, he was a real nice priest. He gave me a dime tip one time for serving mass. I happened to mention it to my pastor, his Father Edward Kelly. Father Kelly looked at me and says, I said, "Oh, Father," I says, "Father Supple gave me a dime tip." "What?" He says, You give it right back to him. You don't get paid for serving mass. And I returned the 10 cents.
It was all a test the whole time. So, class of 1940. So, obviously, in 1940, the U.S. was still at peace, but World War II had already broken out in Europe with France and Britain fighting Nazi Germany, and things were obviously brewing in the Pacific Ocean with Japan, culminating in the December 6, 1941 Pearl Harbor attack. So, when you graduated high school, were you working locally in town, or were you in school, in college in 1940 or 41?
I graduated in 1940. I worked at Curry's. They're no longer there. I think Palmolive bought out at least the business down at Walpole. I worked there for a year. I started working the third shift at 40 cents an hour. But when the war came, I went from 40 cents an hour to working the first shift from 8 to 12, and I was making $1 an hour.
That's a pretty good pay raise right there.
It really was.
What did the company make?
They made surgical supplies, like gauzes and things of that nature.
So bandages and gauze and stuff like that. That must have been in big demand as soon as the war began, with the risk of casualties.
In the meantime, I'd made I made $1 an hour, but I used to pay my mother $10 a week for room and board, and I had a couple of dollars left over, and I'd use that leftover money for a welding class.
Oh, very smart to do that.
Yeah. I don't know how I did it, but I managed. I learned how to weld. I had to take a welding test, and I went to work I passed the test. And I worked for Bethlehem Steel.
Four River Shipyard in Quincy?
I worked at Quincy and I worked at Hingham, both places. So I worked at carriers and I worked at all kinds of vessels.
Wow. And that would have been oxyacetylene welding, right? With the gas instead of the electric arc welding that's come about since then?
No, I was an electric welder, but I learned while I was down there how to cut steel burning with a acetylene torch. And I also learned how to do acetylene welding. Then the war came, and I left that. And I went in the Navy, because my two brothers were in the Navy. One brother was in Anzio, and my other brother was in Saipan.
Wow. Were they in Navy or Marine Corps?
Were they what?
Were they in the Navy or the Marine Corps?
Navy. All of them were in the Navy. So I wanted to go in the Navy too. When I was in the Navy, they sent me to metalsmith school. And they knew I could weld, so I didn't stay in school that long. But they did teach me how to do underwater welding, which meant I had to don the diver's outfit and go down in a deep well and show them that I could do repair work.
And how would they train you for that? Did they have like a big silo or column full of water that you would dive in?
Full of water, and then you had to go down there with a full apparatus.
Where was that training? Was that out in California or here in the East Coast?
No, it was out on the West Coast, Treasure Island. And from there, of course, they shipped me right out to the South Pacific.
And where did they send you to in the South Pacific?
My first island was Manus Island, which is part of the Admiralty Group. And then from there, I worked my way up to the Philippines, Leyte Gulf, and and a few other islands around there.
Wow.
Getting ready for an all-out assault on Japan.
Now, the first island you went to that you mentioned in the Admiralty Islands group, did you go out there on like a destroyer or a transport or something like that, or did they actually fly you out there?
I went out on a transport, and we left at night. I'll never forget it. I looked up at the bottom part of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I waved goodbye to it. I said, I doubt if I'll ever see you again. And I kept that attitude. I just felt that I lost so many of my classmates and personal friends. I'm no different from they are, so. That's what we did. Oh, while I was overseas, I spent a lot of time with the Seabees.
Mm-hmm.
They were very active, doing work for the Air Force. So I was like a yo-yo, going back and forth, working there and working there. But I'm glad I went into the Navy, and I'm glad I was able to serve my country.
Mm-hmm.
Just like my two brothers did.
And you mentioned that you were also, so after being in the Admiralty Islands group, what were you doing in the Admiralty Islands group? Was it patching holes in ships or something like that? Or was it laying down runways for the Seabees?
When I was doing ship repair?
Yeah, when you were in the Admiralty Islands, were you doing ship repair or something else?
Everything. Ship repair, whatever had it to be done. Yeah. As I said, I spent quite a bit of time with the Seabees. And my naval officer didn't quite appreciate it, but he had no choice.
And so they transferred you from the Admiralty Islands by ship to Leyte Gulf in Luzon in the northern Philippines?
We flew up.
Flew up?
Yeah, I did. My group went up. Yeah.
And was that so by that point in time, obviously, that would have been probably late 1944, after the huge Battle of Leyte Gulf, the largest naval battle in history, where the U.S. retook the Philippines from Japan.
We were all set for the all-out drive on the island of Japan. All of us were told, don't plan on going home, because the Sea of Japan is going to be one sea of blood. And we just accepted it. That's it.
A grim prospect, to be sure, but I suppose after all of the difficulties of getting there by island hopping, it seemed like probably the last insurmountable charge of the war.
Well, you got to remember, when you're young, you can take a lot more than when you're old.
Mm-hmm. And when you were in Luzon, was that, or in Leyte Gulf rather, were you fixing ships there as well, or was it more airbase building with the Seabees?
Everything. Had to do it. Everything.
You must have seen a lot of ships at that point in time that had kamikaze damage at that point in the war.
Ships, I saw planes. But I did a lot of flying too, a lot of...
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Well, that was kind of a gratis thank you from the Air Force. I was never a part of the Air Force. I just helped the Seabees.
But you can see a lot from C-47, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Going over the Pacific.
Yeah, but the greatest gift, though, that the United States could give me was the gift of the GI Bill. Mm-hmm. It gave me a great opportunity to go to college.
And so, as the war wound down, so 1945, you came back to the U.S. After your deployment in the Admiralty Islands and the Philippines. And before our program began, I know you mentioned that you did some other stuff for the Navy in California itself, where at one point you took a bus from somewhere on the coast, from perhaps Mare Island Naval Shipyard up in the San Francisco Bay Area, inland to the dry desert areas of inland California.
The desert areas?
You mentioned that you went to Bakersfield and Needles, California, some of those hot inland areas.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's when I left from Boston to go to California. Yeah, we went through one of the hottest places I've ever been in my life, and I've been.
You've been in the South Pacific, so you should know.
But there's a place in California called Needles, just like a thread, a needle. Needles, California. Had to be the hottest place I've ever been in my life. We're on a train, and I don't know how we ever got through that city, but I was so glad to leave. Then we went up through Bakersfield, and that's not a cool place either. So, yeah.
And so basically you took a train all the way from Boston, all the way across the country through all these hot areas in inland California and up to San Francisco.
That was quite a train ride, because the train car that I was in, we had passengers who were members of the Boston Braves baseball team.
Oh yes, back when there was the Boston Braves before they went and got sold off to become the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
That must have been pretty neat.
Yeah, it was quite a joyful ride going from, because we didn't keep them all the way to California. Some would get off in New York and all the way. I think the last one get off at Kansas City.
Did you get to talk with many of the players
while
you
I
were
did.
on the train?
Yeah, they were very nice. Very. I could tell, they felt kind of uneasy. I was in uniform and they were not. There was still, the war was on and there were still civilians. But anyway.
And were there any folks you remember from your time in the Navy that really stand out to you? Officers you had or other people that you served with who you ended up becoming good friends with, or that you remember particularly from your time in World War II?
I did for a while, and then you lose touch with people. Some die, some they got married, some move to different places.
Sure, it's hard to keep in touch with people, especially in an age of letters and expensive long-distance calls and things like that.
But I made some really good friends that wanted me to stay out in the West Coast, and but I was in fact, I was kind of interested. I had a widowed mother that it was her alone, and I felt sorry for her. I asked her, I said, "Would you like to go to California?" And she says, "Sure, if you want to go." I had some really good friends out there, and then I got thinking. I says, they mentioned the GI Bill, and I says, it's kind of selfish of me to ask my mother to leave all her friends and family here to come with me out to a strange place. And I said, I got colleges on the East Coast, so I would go to college. And I went to an East Coast college.
Which college did you go to?
I went to Boston College.
Oh, that's a great school. What did you study while you were there?
Economics.
Yeah. So you had quite a mix of experiences. So you had a very, very practical, hands-on background as a diver and a welder, and obviously your military service, and then also really good background in economics after all of that.
Oh, I had a real good opportunity to stay in welding. I worked when I was out of the shipyard. I worked with a very good friend of mine. I don't know how he found out, but he came to visit me while I was home after the war. He told me he became the president of the Steelworkers Union. And he wanted me to go to work with him. But I had a choice, either go with him or go to college. I told him, I said, I really appreciated his offer, but I decided to go to college. And that was a hard decision. But I'm glad I made it.
Yeah. And when you graduated so I'm guessing you would have graduated probably with right around 1948 or 49 from Boston College?
1950.
1950? And then after you got out of school, what did you do after that?
I worked for a tool company that was located in Connecticut. And they also had a plant in North Attleboro. And I was able to come home weekends. I had a flivver that I'd use to commute. And a friend of mine was visiting one day. I said, "Gee, Bob, why don't you get a job around here? General Motors is opening a plant in Framingham." Oh, I thought it over. I was doing pretty good with this tool company. I said, well, just see what it's like. So I went over there and I applied for a job. Guy says, "You could weld and you're a college graduate?" I says, "Yeah." He said, "Boy, that's quite a combination." And I was a veteran too. He said, "Tell you what," he says, "we're going to be opening up a training program for college graduates." He said, "Would you be interested?" I said, "I think I might be." I says, well, "What's the training program?" "Oh," he said, "we'll put you through every department." Yeah, I said, "That sounds pretty good."
That must have been fascinating. So what were the different departments that you tried out at GM when you were doing that training?
What did I do?
Yeah, what were the different departments that you tried at GM during that training?
Well, the first one I went to was the body shop. The guy says, "You could weld?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Let me see it." "Wow," I said, "you really can." I said, "Yeah." Yeah, so I want you here. So and I went through all the assembly process. Then at the end of the process, they asked me what department I wanted to work. Oh, I went through the officers too. And at the time, I says, I'd be interested in the efficiency department or the work standards department.
A good use of your economics education as well as your welding background.
Yeah, so I went through there, and then ultimately I went to what they call it, human resources. What I went through was personnel, and I got quite a work experience there. And I've been there for 38 years.
And was that all the Framingham Assembly? I know today the Framingham Assembly still actually exists, but it's no longer a GM building. It's actually just a big auto auction in South Framingham, near the Ashland town line. But did you spend all 38 years of your career with GM working at that plant in Framingham?
Not all the time. I did work for the corporation. I did work for the divisions, and but most of my time was in Framingham. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite GM model, or was there a particular model of car that was made at that assembly? I know obviously it would change through the years, but was there a specific, like a Buick or Chevy or a certain type of thing like that they would make a lot of?
I had one that I liked. It was but they came around with a wraparound windshield. It didn't last long, but it was a Buick, and it was a it was a four-door sports car, and I remember buying it, and I loved it. And a friend of mine really wanted it when I decided to get rid of it. I know he really wanted it, so I sold it to him.
He was really excited. He's like, "Yes, Bob's getting rid of his car. I can buy it now."
It was really a nice car.
And so you worked from, I guess that would be roughly 1951 or 1952, and then 38 years later, so that would be sometime in the mid-1980s or late 1980s that you retired from Working for General Motors?
I did. I retired from General Motors. I've been retired ever since.
What year did you retire?
Well, 38 years from. 38 years from.
So about 1989, I would think. 1988, 89, something like that.
I think it was 91.
91?
Yeah.
That's a good long time of service with one company.
Yeah.
How did things change with GM? Because obviously GM, kind of like the bailout that happened for GM 10 or 11 years ago during the 2008 recession, there was also a big bailout while you were there in 1982, where Ronald Reagan had to bail out the company because General Motors was on the verge of going out of business. Did that have a big impact on the stuff you were doing for work, or was it mostly just kind of up at the corporate level?
We had many ups and downs, and I got so used to the model changes. Mm-hmm. And as the years went by, and I had accumulated seniority while I was hourly, because I was only hourly for 90 days. I was hired as, like most people, as temporary. Then I joined the union. I had to join the union because it was a closed shop. Yeah, when I was hired, the employment supervisor told me, he says, if you work out in the plant for 90 days, you'll accumulate seniority rights.
That's a pretty good short time to do it. 90 days isn't bad to get some seniority.
Yeah. Because those 90 days are quite a test for you, too. And
they put you through the ringer in those 90 days, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it was the greatest experience for me. And he says, when your 90 days are up, you come up and see me. He says, then I'll put you on the training program should be about ready to start. He says, I'm sure that you'll be selected. So that's what happened.
And so since your retirement in 1991, you've obviously kept very active with things. I know before the program began, you were talking about your trip out to Los Angeles just a few weeks ago.
Yes. My nephew, Francis Moeller, and his son, Paul Moeller, was also an EMT, talked me into going to California with them because during one of our conversations I'd mentioned that, and it had nothing to do with a trip. I just mentioned, something that I think is fascinating is to see how they decorate those mobile floats for the Rose Bowl parade. And Paul says, he says, I'd like to see the same thing. So lo and behold, he made all the travel arrangements. And we were able to see that. It was quite a trip. We went from Los Angeles to San Diego. And San Diego is a beautiful city.
It is.
And our hotel was right across the street from San Diego Padres baseball park.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also went to the Midway
aircraft carrier. I believe you actually showed me a photo a moment ago, which I can pull up on your iPad here. But look of it, they actually welcomed you to the USS Midway. You weren't stationed in San Diego during any point in time during your World War II service.
No, but the people of California were always so partial and so gracious to service people.
There's some great photos you have from the USS Midway.
That's right outside the carrier.
together with your nephew here?
That's my nephew, Paul Mola, and that's his son.
There with an A4 Skyhawk
There
on
we
the deck.
go.
And in addition to your visit to the Midway, you also went with your nephew, or your grandnephew rather, down to Washington, D.C. last year and visited the National World War II Monument.
Yes.
You got some. You were telling me you got some great photos with Bob Dole, who ran for president in 1996 and is a constant advocate for World War II veterans as a 10th Mountain Division veteran from the Italy campaign.
Yeah, I did that last year, April, and I went with my grandnephew Paul Mola, who was an EMT, because all the veterans had to have a guardian, and Paul was my guardian, and a great one at that.
How was visiting the National World War II Monument? Had you been before the honor flight down there last April?
No, that was my first visit, and it was a very memorable one. It's something that, well, all World War II veterans are encouraged to make the honor trip. Some are not physically able to do it, but the ones I went to, I had some people out there that really struggled, but they made the trip, and it was a very fascinating one.
I imagine. How was it talking with Bob Dole? Obviously, he's still very active in things at, I think, 96 or 97, and still advocating for World War II veterans and commemorations of World War II.
He's a great guy. He's so friendly and cordial to everyone. There's always a lineup waiting to shake his hand. But I had the pleasure of sitting next to him and conversing with him. And he told me, he says, when you go home, be sure to tell your friends if they come here, I'm here every Saturday morning, and if I'm not here, my wife will be here. And she'll greet anybody that same as I'm doing. I said, that's so nice of you, Bob. And I said, I've got two things to tell you. He said, what's that? One, I'm going to give you hell for quitting the Senate. And I said, secondly, on behalf of all my co-veterans, I want to say thank you for the work that you did for this magnificent ball. And he thanked me, and that's what he said. You tell your friends, if I'm not here, on every Saturday, my wife will take my place. He's a very warm and wonderful person.
And that's certainly an amazing monument.
Who was severely injured at Anzio. His life was saved by an Italian peasant. Oh yeah, he was left for dead.
Wow.
He doesn't have use of his right arm. But I shook it anyway. He's a great guy, great American.
It's got to be very interesting all these years later, seeing these commemorations of World War II. Certainly, one of the most pivotal events of the 20th century, and one of those things that will forever be in the history books. But it's still very much a living memory today, and very much a part of our world, more than 70 years later. Actually, an interesting question I was curious to ask in regard to veterans and the legacy of veterans here in Franklin. My understanding was that the Grand Army of the Republic, the GAR, the Union veteran group from the Civil War, had a location behind what's now the fire station on West Central Street for many years, a small war museum called the Newell Relic and Curio Hall. And I don't know quite when that was disbanded, but I was curious when you were growing up if that was something that was still in town, or if you even ever came across any of the town's Civil War veterans, some of whom were still alive into the 1930s, who would have marched in parades and things like that.
Civil War, no. Civil War was before my time. World War I veterans, yes. Did you know that on East Street, right behind the fire station, the American Legion had a home there?
I didn't realize that, no.
Yeah, they had a home. It was finally taken over by the town. I think they converted it into a youth center, which didn't last too long either.
I think I know what you're talking about. It was briefly the police station, too, in the 1970s, perhaps? There was that it was a low-rise building behind the fire station.
But it was facing East Street.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that John Kennedy visited that place. He was still a senator. I met him when he came to Franklin. But he was running for senator at the time. He was a really nice, warm person. Yeah.
And you obviously had some local government involvements yourself. Here in Franklin, you served on the Franklin Town Council?
Yes, I did.
What years did you serve for?
It was the late 90s. I served 2 terms. And I didn't believe in term limits. Oh, I did believe in term limits, I should say. And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was a great experience.
I bet. And I imagine it must have been a lot of interesting things that the council was considering back in the late 90s, especially with how much the town was growing then, much as it's growing now, but a whole different type of fast growth back in the 1990s, with all kinds of building permits for new houses and...
Houses especially.
Mm-hmm. Now it's more apartments and condominiums that are more common 20 years later.
And it creates a bigger problem than what we faced. We thought the building boom, houses, would create a problem for our water supply and traffic. And we were very strict about getting restrictions. And
so in the late 90s, there was also discussion of a building moratorium, I believe, around 1996 or 1997?
Not a moratorium, but a restriction. And those were our 2 major concerns, as I think they're becoming now, a concern for water and traffic. They were really big. And then, of course, you got more people means additional town services. Additional town services means an effect on your taxes. You got to pay for these services.
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
So,
they don't pay for themselves.
That's right. So we were faced with the same problems that the current town problems is faced with.
Bob, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for your service to the U.S.
Well,
we really appreciate
it. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time spent with you, and it's an honor for me to share some of those experiences with you, a younger generation. And I do hope that this younger generation is part of a unified country, such as I experienced during the war years. That to me was one of the greatest, most satisfying period that I ever experienced in all my 96 years. The country united, no matter what state you were in, everybody was united. America first. And I just hope and pray to God that I can see that happen once more. And there's people in your generation that have to make it happen. Okay?
Thank you again, Bob.
You're very welcome.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.